Hi guys, it's car booty time again. Yay! We have two machines this week, so one is more retro than the other, this being the least retro, but I only paid €10 for this. It's a Pentium 4 Windows XP era, so let's have a look to see what's inside it. The main thing I'm interested here is, can you actually get €10 worth out of a machine like this? So, Medion machine, I'm not sure if this will have like a proprietary motherboard in or something more generic. Okay, it has a graphics card in with HDMI on, DVI, so this is not particularly old, I would say. It has a IFPDEOIV coaxials, that's fairly old. Okay, let's open it up and see what's inside this and see if it really is going to contain anything that's worth €10. So, what's inside the box? Well, okay, so it's a socket 775 machine. This has PCIe and 3 PCI slots. I wouldn't call this a retro machine then. There is a hard drive in there. A couple of optical drives, which look like they might be the beige ones actually. Yeah, I can see on the back here and here. They might be worth €10. Okay. Asus graphics card, probably like a GT something or other. So yeah, let's just get this thing apart, because I don't think as a whole it's worth anything really, but we may have something useful in here. Okay, so MSI motherboard, one strip of RAM. This is a SATA hard drive. It's a 320 gigs, so it's too small to be of any much use these days really. If it was an IDE one, it'd probably be worth a bit for that capacity. Graphics card, I think, is what I suspected. EAH5450. We'll have to look that one up, but that's what it is. Okay, Asus. Could be worth a 10, who knows? The optical drives, it turned out, were black, not the beige colour which it looks at the back. They're DVD-ROM, so to be quite honest, that's the writer as well. If these had been beige DVDs, then I think they're worth some money when they're in IDE. But the black one's probably less so. Whereas if you had the black CD-ROMs, probably more so, because it's kind of like what was made most of at that time. There probably weren't many black CD-ROMs, there was a lot of white ones, yeah, and more black on the DVDs. So I don't think they have any value, but we can have a look. I also find with these IDE drives, the beige ones are more reliable. So I had about 100 or so on one video. I went through a lot of them, and I found with a large quantity that the beige ones tended to work 2 times out of 3, so 66% were good basically at the batch, and the black ones 50-50. So the beige ones, you would think were the older ones, were actually the more reliable. Yeah, go figure that one out. Let's just make the obligatory test for shorts on the 12 volts, and then we'll try and power this up. Okay, no graphics card at the moment. I've just left the one strip of RAM in. We have the analyzer. Power on. Started and stopped again. Started again. AF. Doesn't like something. Let's take the RAM out. That's a RAM fault. But the AF also looked like it was a RAM fault to me. Same continuous bleep. That fan's loud. It is a cooler master. Same code but no bleed. That's in a different RAM slot, of course. Okay, let's give them a clean. Oh, switch on again. It's gone past that now, okay? And that's now saying no graphics card. So there's no onboard video on this. I'll put the graphics card in that came with it. Yep, and we have a picture. So, let's put the hard drive on as well. Okay, Windows 7. May have a password on. Yeah. Okay, so the machine works. That wasn't difficult. And as you guys know, the majority of the machines I get from the car boot sale do work or need capacitors. I mean, occasionally I get ones I can't fix or they're more tricky, but you know, most of them are working. So that isn't really the problem with this sort of hardware. It's whether there's any demand for it, yeah? Is it worth even as much as €10? So let's have a look on eBay and figure that out. The motherboard first. Well, I see several being offered for sale around sort of 26, 37, those sort of prices. Somebody wants 79 for that one. Okay. Same motherboard with the processor. Let's see what the buyers think. So I'm going to go into advanced and then sold items and see what we can find. And I don't see any sold, and this usually goes back at least a couple of months. So no, that means it isn't worth anything. Yeah, that's my opinion. The graphics card EAH5450. Well, these are sold listings, so that's a 1 GB, that's a 512, which actually fetch more. Mine is a 512 meg, so we can say one sold in February for £21, but another one with 1 gig sold for 10. These are low profile. That's probably why there's a little bit of demand for them. 13, 15, 19. One fetch 320, yeah. And then 12. So I would say the graphics card, they sell and it's worth at least what I paid for the machine. So nothing lost, I would say, on this one. The optical drives. Well, without testing them, on the laws of average, one's working and one isn't. Okay. Do they have any value? I mean, these are IDE, so we can class this as retro hardware. So DHM1648S. Well, there's nothing in the sold listings. The other one is a Sony DW-Q28A. And yeah, these do sell there again. So this is going back to the end of December, Luke, so 2 or 3 months, yeah. Several of them sold in February. Okay, so they are selling. That's a beige one, that's a black one, that's a black one. And on average, they're selling for about 20, yeah, about £20. So all in all, £30 worth, and this stuff does sell. So actually, yeah, you would get a profit out of a machine like this. After the eBay fees, not a lot. But bear in mind, my €10 I paid for this, and £1 is about €1.20. So, you know, £20 is like €24. So I'm actually covering the eBay costs just in the transfer rate there. Basically, if I take that as profit in euros, it's about right. Okay. So, yep, there is a profit in machines like that, but not a lot. But then, having said that, until you open it up, you don't know what's going to be in there. Yeah, you just never know. Do the machine? Yeah, this is a retro machine, so let's have a look. And here it is. So this one says owner. Owner. couple of beige drives, DVDs again, so we can have it to see what the difference is for the beige ones. Okay, this is actually a CD rewriter. It looks fairly old retro, 2 USBs, game port. That would put this as probably something like a Pentium 3 or around that era, I would think. Pentium 2, Pentium 3. Let's have a look to see what's inside the box. I wouldn't be surprised if this is something like a QDI. I've had quite a lot of QDI boards here, you guys will know if you watch this regularly. And that just looks like one from the back. Yeah, and it's a QDI motherboard. Oh, and it's not a Pentium 3, it's an Athlon or something like that. So I see the brown edge of the substrate of the processor there. So this tells me Athlon. This tells me it's a Kudos 7 version 2. Okay. We have some sort of graphics card that looks fairly generic, but it's AGP. And we have a tiny little LAN card in there. Again, IDE hard drive on this one and the optical drive. So we'll do the same. Let's get this motherboard out of this. Let's test it all and let's see how much this is worth in comparison with the other one, with a few years of difference. Okay. Okay, so here's the motherboard. Now, you might have noticed that this was strapped into the back of the case. I suspect because the machine was crashing and somebody thought that was a good idea. But a far better idea would be to replace these capacitors. Yeah. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 visibly bad. Oh, 5. So yeah, 5 of those are visibly bad, and it's possible that all the other ones of the same value are also bad. It suggests that this machine was booting up. That's why they put the extra cooling on. So I think it'd be interesting just to see if it does power on. And then we know if it boots up anyway that replacing the capacitors is a good idea. And we also have 2 more over here as well. Whereas if it doesn't power on, well, we kind of think if we pay for the capacitors and take the time, it'll probably work. Yeah. Let's see. So this is the VRM. We can see the large MOSFETs here, the coils, 3 phases. And those capacitors will be the ones on the V4, and they're okay by the looks of it. These ones are on another of the voltage rails around the board somewhere, okay? Notice this has this other slot here. Now, I've come across this before, and in fact, it was on a video a good while ago. I had an AGP card plugged into a slot like that, and it didn't work. So this is not an AGP, and it won't fit in there. I had something similar that I did actually fit a card in. This thing says ACR by it, something riser, I think. We'll have a look at a little bit just to see what an ACR slot actually is. This is the graphics card that came with it, which, by the way, is RV6S, whatever that is. Doesn't really say anything else, just RV6S, so we have that. Okay, 64 meg. I'll leave the graphics card out for now. I've got the RAM in there. I've connected the speaker as well. There's no 4-pin or whatever 8-pin connector on here for EATX, so it doesn't need that. Okay, the VRMs will still run off the 12 volt, I would say, or maybe off the 5 volt with boards like that, to be quite honest. Okay, does this actually start in its current condition? Will any of the capacitors go pop? The little red light came on. Yeah, that made me jump. The little red light came on. You can't probably not see it because of the wires, but it's on. What happens when we start it? It's booting to some extent. It's bitching about the RAM. Okay, just reseat that. Still doing the same. So that could well be because of these capacitors. Let's clean the slots. It's gone past that now, yeah. Now it says graphics card. Okay, let's try. One bleep. Blue light on. And a picture. Athlon XP 1500 plus. Okay. This may even boot an OS in this condition. Let's try, eh? Here goes. Booting. CMOS checksum error, defaults loaded. Okay. F1 to continue. Okay. Keyboard's working. Looks like XP, I think. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying for 1 minute you should use a motherboard in this condition, okay. I'm demonstrating today that often they do work. I'm sure this will not be stable, which is why they put that extra cooling on. Sometimes you see people have swamped the CPU with heatsink compound when it's got bad capacitors also. But we know now that if we recap this board, it's going to be fine, yeah. In fact, it might have crashed at that point. Yeah, looks like it did. Yes, it's restarted again. So what's it worth once we've recapped it? Well, if it had ISA, and I have seen, and you've seen on the channel if you watch, boards like this, QDI, with this Athlon type processor, and an ISA slot, and they're worth well over £100. And they sell at that price. They sell, okay. These ones, I think they're more like about 40. Let's have a look. So kudos 7. We'll stick in the sold listings. I don't see anything with that search term, but there's another number on this board. So this is a KD7-A QDI. Still, I find nothing. Not for this one anyway. Let's see if any are actually offered for sale. Yeah, there's a very similar one here. Mine has more slots than this. There's another one for sale here, asking lots of money. And again, I actually don't believe they're worth this price. If they had an ISA slot, yeah, they would be. I don't see any sold, but I still think it's probably worth about 40. And it's worth just keeping hold of at the moment, I would think, anyway. We'll have it today. Graphics card RV6S. Doesn't find anything. Oh, it does. But somebody's got quite a few of them. That's on offer, yeah. For like €20. Untested though. We know ours works pretty much. What is that thing in actual fact? Oh, it's a Radeon 7000. So that's what it actually is. So we can maybe just search for that. Yeah, they're about £10. Again, we can see if any have sold. Yeah, one sold there, looks pretty much similar to mine, but that's a low profile. 16. One sold for 50, go figure that, yeah. One also sold for 90. What is the difference between some of these cards? Not sure, guys, what that's worth. You guys down there, yeah? Then we have another Sony DDU1621 DVD-ROM. And an LG GCE 8160B. Let's have a quick look at these. I'll stick in the sold listings. Yeah, one sold. About £10, look. Much the same as the black ones. And the other one, yeah, £20. That's a black one, yeah. With the DVD-ROMs. The beige ones might be worth more. Okay. So I think we can say about £30 there. The motherboard I can't put a price on because I can't find one, but I suspect it's about £40 is what somebody would pay for one. And the graphics card, up to you guys. Okay, hope you enjoyed that then. We did have some retro hardware this week, and I look forward to seeing you all soon again on Learning Electronics Repair. Ciao for now, guys.